Good morning. So glad to be back with you. Grateful that you are giving us your attention this Saturday morning as we're going to start this half hour with something of a little consumer alert, a warning about some really kind of cheesy marketing that's going on out there in the world. There are more than 20 million Americans who suffer from hearing loss and are really doing nothing about it. It is a big problem. Many people go 7 years or more before they seek treatment for hearing loss. And one of the reasons is that getting hearing aids is something of a process. It involves a visit with a doctor and some other steps that people sometimes are hesitant to take. Sometimes it's identified as cost being a problem. Well, the government's decided that creating a new type of hearing device, one that you can buy over the counter, is a good idea. And those are coming to market. But there are people out there who are jumping the gun, and the internet is filled with devices that you can order. Well, I'm looking at the computer screen right now for as little as $99. Fantastic hearing. They're rechargeable. They'll do... Come on, we all know better, right? You're being taken advantage of. So let's get ahead of that and understand what this whole over-the-counter hearing aid thing is all about. And if you have hearing aids that are in the drawer because you just don't like them, there's something wrong with the way they're working for you, what can you do about it? Hearing is so important. It helps you experience life and helps avoid the onset of dementia, a lot of other factors. So we're going to talk about that with people that I trust when it comes to hearing issues, and that is the folks from the Hearing Center, operated by ENT Associates, the area's leading ear, nose, and throat specialist. Say hello to Alison Schortgen again. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And Madison Ziegel, good to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, did I overstate that? Is there a problem here with this whole over-the-counter hearing thing?
Yes. So I think the challenge is, Donald Trump signed the over-the-counter Hearing Aid Act in 2018, and that set up kind of the process of the FDA setting up regulations for over-the-counter hearing devices. The problem is the FDA hasn't actually released those regulations yet. So, those companies who are claiming that they are FDA-approved over-the-counter hearing aids are not being truthful because the regulations haven't been released yet.
Yeah, so my understanding was they were supposed to come out just last week, the initial recommendations, and then a period of comment, and then they get into production. But that was all slowed down because of COVID, right?
Yes.
So we're still kind of in that gray zone of something's coming, but we don't know what. In the meantime, the number one OTC rechargeable hearing aid from Hearing Depot USA, $75. And it solves all my problems.
It does. I'm sure it does.
Yeah. So these things are just amplifiers, right?
Correct. So when you're finding these hearing devices on the computer now, they are not hearing aids. They are just amplifiers. It's kind of like the volume control on your TV. You're turning everything up, turning everything down, not fine-tuned or tailored to somebody's hearing loss. There's not a prescription for their hearing loss. So, for those patients who might have a mild to moderate hearing loss, they may have some success with it, but probably not a lot, and they're going to be more frustrated than not.
So that all it's doing is ramping up everything. And so if you are having trouble hearing in a specific frequency range, you're just going to get bombed with everything else, and it's going to likely make that problem worse.
Yeah, especially if you just have a specific trouble with just a voice in a difficult environment. We don't want to make everything louder in that environment. So This is not what these amplifiers are designed to do.
So when the new, the official OTC things, the FDA authorized ones start coming out, do we know what they are going to be able to do? Are we clear on that yet?
I don't think we're very clear on what the devices will do. I think it will be somewhat determined by the manufacturers of these devices. So the over-the-counter, the market really was, the push for the over-the-counter devices was really from the consumer electronics companies, Samsung, Bose. Bose was a leader in getting this act passed. They really wanted to get this passed. Apple. All three of those, I suspect all three of those companies, they're working on a solution right now. I think our best bet, at least initially, for successful over-the-counter devices are going to be from the current hearing aid manufacturers. They've been doing research and development with hearing technology for a really long time, so they kind of have this head start. I think in the end, the over-the-counter devices, if well regulated by the FDA, is going to be good for the consumer. The problem is I don't suspect that these are going to be well regulated by the FDA.
Yeah. So what is going to be different about these devices? They're going to cost less in theory. Do we have any idea where the price point is going to be on these things?
I think the price point's going to vary. I think you could get them for as low as $100, but I think you're going to have some over-the-counter devices that are going to be $500 or $600. We really have no way of knowing right now, but I would be suspect to a hearing aid that's going to cost $100 because I don't think it's going to provide much for the patient.
Yeah. So what won't I get if I go down this road of an OTC device?
You won't get the personalization that you would get from a traditional hearing aid.
What do you mean by that personalization?
Yeah, you won't get the whole process you mentioned earlier. So having the evaluation of your hearing fully to determine what is the hearing loss, the nature of the hearing loss. Is this a medical condition that needs a medical treatment, or is a traditional hearing aid or amplification in some way the most appropriate treatment option? And then you won't have the audiologist sitting there with you, helping overcome some trouble that you're having when you are wearing those hearing aids in certain environments. So it will really be, you get the devices, you put them in your ears, and maybe you can adjust the volume up and down, but not the customization.
I think also, you think about a lot of my time spent with patients is not necessarily going over how to use the device. Some of it is, but a lot of it's counseling, what to expect, what are realistic expectations, what are things that you shouldn't expect, counseling with the family, how can you communicate better with your loved one. So when you are pursuing this over-the-counter device, you're responsible for learning how to put it in, how to take it out, how to take care of it. You don't know what is realistic in expectations. You might be feeling like you're doing just fine, and you could do so much better with more traditional devices. But I think in the end, over-the-counter hearing devices is a good segue into professionally fit devices, where maybe they're not ready to make that investment in the technology and the financial aspect of it. They want this is kind of a bridge to better fit hearing technology. In the end of the day, I think the patients that are most successful are the ones that we are able to take that time with to counsel, to work through those issues from that standpoint.
And I always like to repeat for folks who haven't heard you guys on the program before, Alison knows what she's talking about because she's wearing hearing aids since childhood, right?
Yeah.
So you understand all the counseling, and you have to relearn to hear once you have hearing aids.
Correct.
And that's part of what you do, is bring that personal experience to helping people understand what's going on. One of the problems with hearing aids today, even professionally fit hearing aids, is 20% of the time they're sitting in the drawer because people aren't happy with how they perform. They have a challenge of one sort or another. So we're going to touch on that when we come back. We're going to talk about if you have hearing aids and you're not satisfied, what options do you have and what can you do? Because hearing is so important to your life, and you're important to us here on the HealthCall Live Radio Hour on WOWO. And we are back to audiologists Alison Schortgen and Madison Ziegel from ENT's The Hearing Center. We are talking about, among other things, a new class of hearing device that's going to be coming to market sometime soon, and the fraud that is happening already because of that, an over-the-counter hearing device. But I want to focus now on if you have hearing aids and you're just not satisfied, what can I do about that? If I've got aids that are a few years old and they're in the drawer and, maybe it's time to pull them out and try again, what can I do?
Mm-hmm. Well, to start with, we need to get an updated hearing test done. We recommend every year updating the hearing test because things change over time, and to properly be wearing the hearing aids, we need to make sure the prescription, if you will, matches, what's programmed into the hearing aids. So if it's been a few years since you've pulled those out of the drawer and put them on, definitely get in and get an updated hearing test done to start with.
And then does it matter what brand and where I got them? Do I have to go back to where I received the hearing aids?
I think it depends. It depends on where you got them from. So there are some manufacturers where you absolutely can come in to most providers and you can receive service with those hearing devices. We call them unlocked devices, where we have access to be able to connect to those hearing devices, make changes to the prescription, update the programming to match the prescription that's recommended for their hearing loss. There are other hearing devices that are what we call locked hearing aids. And these are the hearing devices that I really recommend patients stay away from, because if you get upset with your provider, or you're not satisfied with your provider, you're really limited on what other providers can do. Belltone, Audibel, Miracle Ear, some of the Costco hearing aids. You just have to be careful because, again, if you aren't doing well and you want to see if somebody else can make things better for you, you don't have an option unless you're going to another state, another city, because from that standpoint, there aren't providers or audiologists who can help you because the manufacturers have limited our access to the software.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that. Yeah. So there is a software update that comes to some hearing aids? I didn't realize that.
So sometimes the manufacturers will come out with what we call a firmware update that will change little things about how the processing happens. They will never make big changes in those software updates, but there are software updates that are happening. I think from my vantage point, what I'm talking about is updating the programming. So for professionally fit devices, and one of the things that we do when we fit new devices is something called real ear measurement. So there's been a lot of research put into developing prescriptions for what is going to make sure that the patient is hearing the best that they can hear, that we make all of the speech sounds audible so that they're hearing all the speech sounds that they need to hear. That makes speech more clear for them. That prescription, all that research that goes into that prescription, when we match that prescription, it's going to improve that patient's success with the devices. When a patient's hearing changes, we have to update that prescription. We don't want it to stay the same, because if it stays the same, it's based on their old hearing test.
Sure.
So they may be missing speech sound because they're simply not hearing it from that standpoint.
Yeah. So what's a sign that my hearing, if I've taken them out and they're in the drawer, step one is make an appointment, come and see you, and what will you do for me? Okay, hearing test, you're going to give my hearing an update, and then what do you do with the devices?
We also evaluate the devices. We're checking them. We're making sure that those devices are in working order, working condition. Sometimes, and this is another challenge with over-the-counter devices, I can't tell you the number of times a patient comes in, they're mad, they're upset because the hearing devices aren't working, they're not working well. We take a look at them, they're plugged with wax. There's a malfunctioning part that we can change. Oftentimes, hearing aids that aren't working, the fix takes us 30 seconds to fix it. But
really?
Because, and remember that for most patients, we're reviewing how to clean the hearing aid, how to make sure that it's not plugged up with wax, how to maintain them. The challenge becomes that, especially as we get older, we don't see as well. It's hard to see. You don't see it the patient isn't seeing that day in and day out. So they may say, oh, it looks fine, when really it's not fine.
Yeah. Do you see a pattern here in what type of dissatisfaction I have? Is it that they don't work well, or I didn't really train myself to hear with these new gadgets?
It certainly can be both. When it's they don't work well, that's certainly something we can help with, cleaning them up, retraining them how to daily take care of them so that they aren't dissatisfied every single day. When it's I didn't train myself where to wear them, that's counseling. That's certainly where our expertise comes in as well. And that really just takes sitting down, making sure the expectations match what the hearing aids are capable of doing. That the patient is not expecting to hear every single thing in every single environment. That they're not expecting hearing aids to perform above what their technology is capable of, because there are various levels of technology for different lifestyles. And so we really spend a lot of time with the patient after, before, at all times during the process, making sure what they're expecting, what family members are expecting, or what really is capable.
I think the phrase that I always go back to for my patients and their family members is that you cannot expect with hearing devices that you will hear the same as somebody with normal hearing. The technology just isn't that good.
How does it sound to you? I mean, since you wear them, you're accustomed to it now.
Right.
But how does it sound different?
I don't know that I'm a good person to answer that question.
Well, I suppose that's right.
Yeah, because for me, this is normal for me. But I know that there are things that I miss. I mean, there are things where I know that, our coworkers are having a conversation in the other room. I know they're talking. I usually can't understand what they're saying, but I know that Madison, she's sitting right next to me. She is going to know what they're talking about in that other room. She will understand what they're saying.
Okay.
Most of the time. I do also tell people just because you've gotten hearing aids doesn't mean you can have that full conversation with your wife in the other room while she's washing the dishes. Because with normal hearing, I may not understand everything my husband's saying in the other room. I may be aware, I may hear most of the conversation, but I still may miss things. So although it doesn't make things what it should be or what it had been with normal hearing, even normal hearing is not perfect and will miss things.
Yeah.
I think the complaint that we get most of the time from patients is that they struggle to hear in background noise. People with normal hearing struggle to hear in background noise. So if you are going into your hearing journey with new hearing aids with the expectation that you are going to hear everything in a noisy place, you're going to be really dissatisfied. It just isn't going to happen.
We were talking before we came on the air about how the popularity of earbuds for listening to music and podcasts and that kind of thing is changing the world. And Madison, you shared a story with me I thought is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I had a few patients recently this week actually tell me, there's a stigma associated with hearing aids, and they're actually excited that the younger generations and even some of their friends have started wearing these AirPods and the Bose headphones and different things, because now when they wear hearing aids, they look just like everybody else and actually more discreetly wearing the devices.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable what those tiny little in-the-ear things can do. And you're right. If I have something over the ear, how's that any different than having a white ear pod or earbud, whatever they're called, hanging out of my ear? It's really no different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Will you have an over-the-counter product that you'll make available?
Yes, our intention is to have an over-the-counter device where patients can come in and purchase. We can kind of vet those devices up front to get the devices that we feel are going to be the most reliable, the most durable, and that patients are going to do or be the most successful with. The advantage to that also is that then those patients, if they are having trouble, they can pay an office visit or a service charge for either one of our assistants to take a look at them to figure out, why are they not working? Is it plugged up? Or even have those service charges with the audiologist to maybe have a counseling session if that's what they need.
Yeah.
Perform the real ear verification to see how closely are these over-the-counter devices matching the prescription that the patient would be most successful with.
And what's your guess right now, or I guess that's all it can be as a guess. Do you have any idea when these are going to come to market?
I really don't know. My guess is that the manufacturers already have something waiting in the wings. They're just waiting for the regulations to come from the FDA. I think we'll see those regulations in the next few months, is what I have read, is that they're coming in the next few months. And I think that you'll see shortly after, I think in the next year, these devices are going to be out. And again, they are going to be beneficial for those patients who do have that perceived mild to moderate hearing loss. Just be aware that if you're not successful with those devices, that doesn't mean you can't be successful with professionally fit hearing devices.
Yeah, so these are like training wheels,
Exactly.
right? A place to try get started, and as your loss continues, you may need to progress on to the more advanced device, but a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Ladies, we have to end it there. Thank you very much. That is Alison Schortgen and Madison Ziegel, audiologists from the Hearing Center. You can find them online at enthearingcenter.com. They have 15 clinic locations all over Northeast Indiana, so there is an office that's close to you and convenient. Again, you can find more at enthearingcenter.com.